Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is, believe it or not, this is the 50th video for Crazy Nut Reviews. Kind of a milestone for me. I didn't think I was actually going to make it to 50 videos, but it turns out doing YouTube videos is just something that is fun for me. And okay, full disclosure, this was not the video that I was planning for the 50th review, or the 50th video for the Crazy Nut Reviews channel, but the video that I was planning, the book that I was planning to review, turned out to be a little bit harder to read than I had anticipated, and I need some lighter reading first. And that kind of brings us to Arthur C. Clarke. This is the third time that I'm actually talking about Clarke. I've reviewed his stuff twice before. I did Ghost of the Grand Banks and The Lost Theorem earlier this year, and I bring up Clarke because, one, the story that we're reviewing for this video is his very first story, as far as I can tell, and his work is not easy to read. If anything, it's harder to read than the book that I was going to review for this video. With that said, which videos or which story are we talking about? We are talking about Travel by Wire. This was, as I just said, it was part of Arthur Clarke's very first story, at least as far as I can find. It was published originally in 1937 in Amateur Science Fiction, and then collected into an anthology of sorts, the Best of Arthur C. Clarke, 1937 to 1955, and it basically it's told in the first-person perspective, and our narrator is telling us about this project, this experiment to create a transporter, which it's not outright said, but I'm guessing that it's some sort of teleportation device. So they're trying to put this teleportation device together, and they borrow a guinea pig for the first experiment, and unfortunately the poor little guy dies from the shock of being put through the experiment. And I don't know, reading this, I don't know that you could actually, if they actually the experiment is conducted a few more times. The second time with another guinea pig, and this time it's a success. So they keep doing it, and they reduce the number of fatalities with each experiment, which I don't even want to know how many people or test subjects actually died doing this or taking part in this thing. Yeah. So they go through this whole thing. They talk about the first experiments and how, as they went along, the number of fatalities was reduced, and then it's kind of around the end they start talking about the different accidents that happened, which culminated in a lawsuit for £1 million in damages from a celebrity who took part in one of the demos that they did. And as he's talking about this lawsuit, it actually kind of brings up my favorite line in the whole story, where the narrator talks about how, much to the dismay of lawyers on both sides of the courtroom, the chief engineer on the project is called to testify. He steps into the witness box and basically says, if something had actually happened to you, because the lawsuit was the celebrity was suing them because the machine apparently made her less beautiful. And the chief engineer steps in and basically says, look, if something had actually happened, you wouldn't have been able to recognize yourself had somebody been cruel enough to give you a mirror. Which I thought was kind of a pot shot to a point. I mean, it was a funny line, don't get me wrong. I read that and I actually laughed out loud. And I actually laugh out loud every time I read that line. But it does kind of seem like a bit of a pot shot against against the whole celebrity aspect of things, where you have to look a certain way. You have to look a certain way, or you have to act a certain way in order to get somewhere. It kind of feels like a bit of a pot shot, but at the same time, if the experiment really was that bad, if the accident had been that bad and somebody, really had been that cruel as to give this person a mirror, that would have, I think, would have been messed up. The story kind of ends. It kind of ends there. There is some brief speculation about using this device to transport people and I would imagine people and pretty much anything else to other planets in the solar system. And I mean, the implication is that it's possible, but it's not really likely to happen. And admittedly, that ending, it's actually the first story. I'm going to get back to this in a second, but the end line, I just want to see if I can get to it now. So yeah, they talk about possible travel to other planets using this thing, and the narrator basically says, well, the sun is created, there's a lot of interference in space, which kind of hinders the experiment and keeps us from going that far. And it talks about how until we can get past that kind of interference, then it's not very likely. But the ending here is kind of abrupt. It ends with the guy saying, oh, well, he notices the time and he says, oh, well, I have to be in New York by this time, so I have to go now. Bye! And, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of abrupt. It just kind of ends. Now, admittedly, you do get some resolution with the speculation about interplanetary stuff, but the narrator just saying, oh, well, good night, I gotta go. Yeah, it just kind of stops, which, it was going along just fine. It's well written, it's well paced, but that ending is it feels kind of forced to me. Maybe, but I have to be fair. The story is very short. It's about 4 pages. and you can only do so much with 4 pages. Yeah, I think I've just gotten used to very long stories, like long novels and things like that. So stories like this, where it just kind of ends, it's just something that I have to get used to again. Ooh. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, I also think Clarke was kind of trying to find his groove, for lack of a better term. This was, as I said at the start of the, I said it twice already. I'll say it again. This was his first story, so this was before he became kind of the legend of science fiction that he is. That said, it is well written. It's not as heavy as some of his other stuff. He doesn't focus so much on the technical details of how the machine actually works, which is nice because, frankly, I probably would have given up if he had gone that far. But yeah, so Travel by Wire is the first story in the collected stories of Arthur C. Clarke. I've had this book for a while now, and I don't know if you guys can see, there's a little scrap of paper in here. I haven't really gotten too far into this. I have read a lot of these stories in the past, but when I kind of started reading it again recently, and I haven't, as you guys can see, I haven't really gotten very far with it. That said, it's a good book. There's a lot of great stories in here, and if you can get a hold of this book, absolutely get a hold of a copy. It is well worth it. And if you've never read Clarke's work before, this might be kind of a good introduction to Arthur C. Clarke's work. Yeah, if you've never read Clarke's work, I think this would probably be your best bet if you want to get some sort of an introduction. Then again, I mean, this is like, I'm not even sure how many stories. I think there must be close to 100 stories in here. The book is 965 pages long. If I go to the very long, yeah, so 965 or 66 pages or so. So there are a ton of stories in here, and if you want to read Clarke's work, but you're not sure if you're going to like it or not, and you don't particularly want to spend like $150 or $200 on a single novel that you'll read and find yourself hating, and then just kind of either sits on your shelf and remains, unread after you kind of give up, or ends up in a box that you sell at a flea market or something, then yeah, definitely pick up a copy of this. There's enough variety in here in terms of subject matter and story length that this, even if you never buy another Arthur C. Clarke book, this is definitely worth picking up. And I'm repeating myself now. So that is Travel by Wire. It's short, it's sweet, it's funny, and it's fun. Plain and simple. Okay, so let me just put this down. And then I've got a couple of other reviews to do. And then we have our big review for the year, I guess you could say. well, I mean, it'll be about as big as I can, or as long as I can make it, I should say. I probably could have phrased that better. Yeah. So, thank you guys for watching. And thanks for sticking with me for 50 videos now. It's greatly appreciated. Yeah, I've said pretty much everything I can say. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Cheers, guys.